Hi everybody, I'm Rob, and just to kind of get off the Cornetto trilogy a bit, I decided why not go back to the oldies, which for me is really just the 90s, and focus on a movie that every 90s kid loved. Except for me, Space Jam. I just wasn't big into it. And it's most of it is me, I'll admit that, because watching the movie, even now you can see, hey, a lot of people put work and love into it, but it just never clicked for me. I don't know why. I've got a lot of theories on it, but I can't really tell you why. And one of those theories is Michael Jordan. I did not grow up in a basketball house. I grew up in much more of a football type of house. And even then, it was a lot more died down than you would expect. So, with a famous basketball star starring in the movie, it wasn't the draw for me. It was, as he's just a guy to me. Now, 20 years later, I know, oh, he was a big deal in the 90s. He's held as one of the greatest basketball stars of all time. And, all right, now I kind of get the draw of why bringing him into being a movie would be a big deal. I mean, Shaq's gone on to be in a couple of movies here and there, and Dennis Rodman did a couple, sadly. And all right, I get it. Putting athletes in movies has been a thing for years, decades, forever. And then here's the issue: the vast majority of athletes in movies were usually in actions, comedies, stuff like that. But here, his main co star is Bugs Bunny. Now, the idea of live action mixed with animation goes all the way back to Roger Rabbit, where they did a phenomenal job. And here, it's kind of worse. And everybody kind of knows what I'm going to get at with this one. With Roger Rabbit, it was a live action world featuring cartoons. There were cartoon environments, but they were usually used as sets for cartoons or were just fleeting. Whereas with this, it's Michael Jordan in a room that's all green screen acting around floating tinfoil balls, is basically what it is. Everything around him is animated later, and he's just a guy standing there. And he sticks out like a sore thumb. Especially very early on when he first gets to Warner Brothers Toon World Place. I don't know what to call it. Toon World Place. There we go. Now let's swing all the way back to the tunes on this one. I think the animation is phenomenally good. Like, I loved Looney Tunes since I was a kid. I didn't have cable growing up, so I didn't really get to see a whole lot. It was just whenever I'd go over to my grandma's house, oh hey, they're on, this is what we're doing for the next half hour. So seeing them in a big movie is a big deal to me. Was then, it still is now. Because Mickey Mouse gets 6 movies a year, Bugs Bunny doesn't get a whole lot. And seeing everybody together, really great. One of the downsides is, of course, that Mel Blanc had passed, so he wasn't around to do all the voices. And then they didn't even have his son to do him, which he had been doing, I guess, for a little while before this. So they brought in, like, D. Bradley Baker, the guy who does the voice of Fry on Futurama. He popped in to do Bugs. And I think everybody that that came in and covered in did phenomenal. All the voices are good. Everything's great. One of the places where I think it stands out that this doesn't really feel right is nobody acts perfect. You never see the Coyote try to get the Roadrunner in the middle of the game. That doesn't happen. Everybody is going on a truce. Now, this is where I kind of got to look at the plot and say, all right, that makes sense. Because the plot is on some alien, animated, of course, roller coaster theme park world, he looks like a mob boss. Like, he looks like a mob boss. Cigar, suit, larger around the middle. Like, this is the bad guy. Like, if you walked into a meeting with this guy because he's going to invest money in your franchise, you'd just be like, yep, bad guy. This is spot on. This is This is going to be my main villain for the next week or two. Cool. And his business is floundering, so he's like, hey, let's go get all of these cartoon hijink filled fellas and chain them up to enslave them and make all of our profits go up. So he sends his little minions, and I looked up what their names are, and I will be surprised if I can remember it and ever, because I don't even think they ever say their names in the movie. But they are small and cute and not at all threatening. Their leader, I think he's the orange one, is very, but he's just so adorable. You just want to pinch his cheekies. And they're not threatening. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do this. You're coming with us, you're going to work for us. And Bugs is like, no, we're not doing that. And there's some banter back and forth. And finally they decide, all right, here's the deal. We'll play a basketball game. We win, you leave. You win, you get us all. All right, movie's got a movie. Now this is where it kind of gets a little more interesting, is that these little guys are like 6 inches tall. There is no way they can even throw a basketball more than 3 feet in the air. So they're not going to get any points at all. So their plan is to steal all the talent from NBA stars and use that to win. And I kind of love that. They use some sort of a magic basketball that when the players touch it, it drains them, and now they're just terrible. And I don't mean like, oh, every time they try to make a basket, they just overshoot. No, I mean they can't walk, they can't dribble, all of it's gone. It is just terrible. Terrible. But I love it. It's that bad good. Or good bad. I don't know. It's one of the two. Pick one. And then when they absorb the talent, they all of a sudden get, 8 feet tall. They're in good shape. And it's instantly, oh, this was a bad idea. So then, of course, Bugs and Daffy have to go get Michael and convince him to help. And he finally relents and like, all right, let's do this. So they spit shine the court and they get to training and they get everything together. And this is where I do have to mention the introduction of Lola Bunny, who, aside from Granny, Elmer Fudd, and who else? So there's very few characters who actually wear clothes, which I think makes her stand out a lot. Now I get why, of course. Like, don't Google, like don't Google, but just trust me on this. There's a lot of people on the internet who have been kind enough to point out there's a good reason. But she shows up, love interest to Bugs, a strong female character, and an actual strong female character. She proves that she can hold her own. She's as good as or better than the vast majority of boys. Absolutely standout character, even in her first scene. And all the way to the end credits, she's one of the best characters in this entire movie. So, game starts, they're losing. If you've seen any sports movie ever, there's always the halftime, we're down by so much, we'll never get back. And then there's the rousing speech from your captain, which is really, in this one, kind of the fun little, oh, here's a bottle, it's full of super juice, it'll make you the greatest basketball players of all time. And really, it's just tap water with a sticker on it that says super juice. Yay! It's very placebo effect way of doing it. I get it. I'm not a big fan of it, but this is a kid's movie, so looking back at it as a 30-year-old man, it doesn't hold as well, but when you're a kid, you're like, that'll do it. It's basically the same as magic. So, second half starts, and now all of a sudden they're massive comebacks. They're doing all sorts of stuff. Insert random Bill Murray cameo 2, because he popped in for a quick golf game very early in and then comes back in at the end. I'm not against it. As a kid, I was like, okay, who's this guy? Now, again, as an adult, I'm looking at like, oh, hey, it's Bill Murray. Cool. Like, hey, look at that. It's a piece of delicious chocolate cake in the middle of this Sorry, got lost in beautiful there for a second. Anyway, so Bill pops in, helps out a bit, then he's out. Wayne Knight, who's playing Michael's manager, he gets in, he gets flattened. And Wayne Knight has always been at least in the 90s, he was always kind of that asshole in the movie. Like when he was Newman in Seinfeld, you're like, yeah, this guy's a jerk. Then Jurassic Park comes out, and he rose up the ranks of being the jackass. And so it was really nice to see him playing a nice, loving character who's very, I'm here to help. I got this. Very positive. Team player. Let's do this. Really, I love Wayne Knight. He's great in everything. It was really great seeing him in this. Get to the end of the movie. Michael Jordan goes in for the slam dunk, has to use toon physics, which was a really nice, odd sprinkle on this movie, because all the way up to this, he's just been a guy. Like, he's nothing fancy. Everybody else is doing something fancy, he's not. And he gets that arm stretch, that perfect Mr. Fantastic dunk, they win the game. And yay, he did it. And then they got to get him to his baseball game, because this was during the time where he'd quit the NBA and try to become a baseball star before going back, which from what I've heard on the internet was probably due to gambling. All right, I was like 4 or 5 when this came out, so it's never even entered my solar system of peripheral caring. So where does this movie really suck, and where does it hit? Where it hits, voice acting, animation, even the setup's pretty good. Where does it falter? I can't even say Michael Jordan is really the problem here. I've seen more established actors give worse performances in better movies. He doesn't really grind on me too much. I think mainly the problem with it is just the characterization. He's playing himself, but it's an off himself. It's not entirely there. And then there's all the Looney Tune characters. Alright. Granted, we do get a nice scene of Pulp Fiction-iness, which if you've seen it, you know the scene, suits, firing, yeah. I don't know why, I guess I do know why this was in a kid's movie. It was entirely for the parents. Like, hey, sorry you gotta sit through this 90 minutes of boringness, but here's a Pulp Fiction reference. Remember when you were having fun watching a movie? It's another thing that kind of doesn't line up with me too bad. That's a lot of personal taste. It's just kind of the music selection. Now, the Fly Like an Eagle, everybody knows that song. When that song comes on the radio, you instantly think of Space Jam. I just don't like that song, so to have it kind of be so associated with this movie probably adds a little too much to it for me. Now, one of the things I do got to comment on, because when I was looking up this movie, I thought, wow, that's really cool, is Danny DeVito does the voice of Swackhammer, the big bad guy. And I just love Danny DeVito, so that, along with Bill Murray, that's just a little, isn't that nice? Now, is this a good movie? Yes. It's well put together, everything's edited together great, the animation, the acting, everything's good. Do I love it? No. I've never loved it. Last time I watched it before this review was 8 years, 10 years, somewhere in there. And that was just because I was at my buddy's house and him and his sister were going to watch it. It's the only reason I haven't watched it. If you're going to offer me $20 to watch it, I'll watch it. But it's not something I'll ever, oh, wow, I remember watching this when I was a kid. I loved it. Then I'll watch it for nostalgia's sake. No. There are a vast list of movies I'll watch from my childhood for nostalgia reasons. I own a few of them on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. I'll get to those boys. Trust me. But this is not one of them. And I think a lot of that is just being a kid of a non-sports oriented house. Didn't know who Michael Jordan was. He might as well have been Michael Jackson. Like, they're just names to me. And now, 20 years later, maybe I just missed my opportunity to latch on to it. It's definitely something worth putting on to keep the kids quiet for 90 minutes. I know it kept me and my sister quiet when we were kids, even if it wasn't really something I loved. So where do I gotta put it? I gotta give it probably a good 3 out of 5. It doesn't blow my socks off, but it's not bad. If it's on and I'm bored, I'll watch it. But it's just well enough made, and it's the Looney Tunes. Like, those guys instantly get a gold star. Even if it was literally just them standing in an alleyway talking about trash day. Like, here's a gold star. Like, you get it just for being you. You beautiful, beautifully animated bastards. So, I've been Rob. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. Cast Wayne Knight. He's a good actor. He should be in a lot more awesome movies.